get ready for a new episode of Call Me Crazy with Shiri Gabriel.
As I was taking off from Israel to come back to Toronto, back home, I heard a song, and some of the words on the song were, and I'm going to say them in Hebrew, then I'm going to translate them into English. אל תשכח את התקווה, השיבני ונשובה אל הארץ הטובה. Don't forget the hope. I will come back to the good land. And as I heard those words and as I heard the song, I started crying painfully. And that feeling just stuck with me since the day I left Israel. And it's crying from the heart to the experience that I had in Israel, the reality that exists right now in Israel. Before I tell you about that, let me just backtrack a little bit and what really got me to go to Israel. The main reason was because I wanted to be ready for when the day would come that my grandkids would ask me, Grandma, what did you do when October 7th happened? And I could actually tell them that I got on a plane and went to Israel to volunteer. That's how I felt. I felt that I had to. I felt that need of giving, contributing, volunteering, of having an impact, of being able to do as little or as much as I could in order to make, of course, myself feel better selfishly, but at the same time be able to change even one person's life, is if I could. Making a difference, having an impact. That's how I live my life. And here it was put to the test in a much stronger way that it had ever been. There are pivotal times and very important times in our lives that we get tested. October 7th, I think, was one for me and for many people. I decided to take action and I decided to do something about it. The experience was absolutely incredible. I went in knowing that I would contribute in my own way, knowing that there would be some kind of impact on me, as I said, and on others. What I didn't realize is that that impact was going to be that much bigger and deeper than I ever thought or I ever imagined. So, when you go into a situation wanting to learn for you, wanting to get something for you, and you end up coming out of that situation that much stronger, that much more fulfilled, and much more impacted than you would have ever thought. That was my experience. I decided that I wanted to do three things when I was there. One, help and visit wounded soldiers. The other one was work at the hostage headquarters. And I also wanted to visit the kibbutzim in the area close to Gaza that was affected or was destroyed, and where people were murdered. I definitely wanted to visit the Nova Festival, other kibbutzim, and also army bases. So my journey started with the visit to the soldiers. And the first soldier that I saw, the first thing that I did was thank him. Thank him for his service, his contribution to keeping us as Jews outside of Israel safe, and to make him understand that we cared about him, that we were thinking about him, and that we loved him and we love him. And that was the message that I gave to each one of the soldiers that I saw. What I got back, though, wasn't just a thank you. It was a very genuine response and surprise and a thankful message back to me. They were thanking me for coming all the way from Toronto, Canada to visit them. They were so grateful that I got on that plane and I took the time to come and see them and bring them halot and challah bread and cookies and just to say thank you. So I went in wanting to strengthen them with my love, my words, my presence. I came out of that experience so much stronger, not only because of how much and how grateful they were for me being there, not only because of the fact that the impact that I thought was going to be much little, or that I actually undermined it, was so big, so much bigger than I thought. Um, and also the fact that their motivation, their them being grateful to being alive, and them wanting to just go back into battle and fight for their country and fight for what's right, for humanity and for peace, was unbelievable. Many times all I heard is, I'm okay, I'm alive, and that's what's important, and I'm ready to go back in and fight side by side with my friends, with my platoon. And these are soldiers that many of them had lost limbs and they were ready to go back in. Many of them were burnt, 50% of their bodies. Some of them had a hard time breathing, sitting up. Some of them had a hard time speaking, not because of the mental damage, but I'm talking about physical. I'm not even touching on the mental damage. Because even after going through everything that they went through, even after seeing everything that they saw, even after losing their friends, they were motivated. They were ready to fight. And they were grateful for the opportunity that they had to fight for their country, fight for peace, and combat terrorism. That experience alone had a very, very deep impact, an unforgettable impact on me. And this is why I say that I came out of it stronger, not only because of the strength that they provided me, but also because of the knowledge and the realization that the little impact that I thought I would have was so much bigger than I could have ever imagined. And that was my first experience with having an impact. My second experience was the impact that I had working in the headquarters with all the volunteers, the hostage headquarters, where it's a place where all the videos, all the social media, all the messages, all the interviews that we see come from there. These are all volunteers that are giving their time to make a difference, to speak, to be the voice of us Jews, of humanity, to try and bring all the hostages back, to create awareness around the world of the atrocities that have been done to Jews, Muslims, Christians, to Israelis living in Israel. The whole education behind October 7th. And so talking to people there, seeing how much of their time, effort, money they were giving for this cause, how this brought a whole group of people, a country together to fight for what's right. Many people stopped working and they just dedicated their time to this cause. Meeting with them, meeting with the families of the hostages, getting the strength from them, the strength that they have to wake up every single morning. And as my friend Ayelet, who's Namaz Levi's mom, said to me, every morning I wake up to October 7th. And it's hard for me to get out of bed, but I have to, because I have to advocate for my daughter. I have to fight for her and every other hostage to be brought back home. Because if I don't do it, then who would? And because I have 3 other children that need me. Ayelet and all the other families of hostages that I met, including families who are displaced and lost everything. They are lionesses and lions. The strength that they find within themselves to continue to get up every morning and continue to fight for what's right, continue to fight for their loved ones. That is something that unless you speak to someone who's going through it, unless you see it with your own eyes and your heart, you will never understand. The third thing that I did, I visited the blanket, I think that's what it's called, the areas affected by Hamas, the destruction that happened there, the Nova Festival, Nahal Oz, the fortress, the army base, Kibbutz Nirim, one of the kibbutzim, and how they fought. And again, this is something that unless you see it, and even watching all the movies, unless you're there, it is incomprehensible. You feel like you're in a movie, in a horror movie. This is something that happened. And I'm not going to get into the details. I'm not going to get into the politics of it because we all know what happened. I'm sharing because I need you to understand that the reality living in Israel, the reality of people living in Israel can only be understood when there. Many people have opinions, they have thoughts, they have feelings, which is great. And we are human beings. But unless you are there, it is very hard to comprehend the reality of what people are going through. And this brings me to the point where the impact that I thought I would have would only be towards the people who were directly affected by October 7th. But little did I know, and I maybe forgot or didn't think about the fact that every single person in Israel had been affected. I knew, but with something that I didn't know is how me coming to Israel and meeting with friends that I hadn't seen in a long time, how that would have an impact on them. And every single person that I met with thanked me for taking the time to come to Israel and volunteer. They thanked me for bringing a little bit of happiness into their lives. And I felt so humbled. And only then did I realize that me being in Israel was much more impactful than I ever thought. Because being an Israeli living in Israel could feel extremely lonely. And the fact that I took the time to go there, just like many other people do, just shows them that we care, that we love them, and that we are part of everything that is happening in Israel and is happening around the world, and they're not alone, and that Israel will always be home for us. And this is something that just strengthened me so much and selfishly made me feel so good. It made me feel that the mission that I was going on was so much bigger than I ever thought, that the impact that I had was so much bigger than I could ever imagine. And all it took was to make a decision, get on a plane, and go visit with people who I love, and go visit with people who I didn't know before, but I just wanted to let them know that we're thinking about them and we thank them for everything that they're doing. Because as Jews in the Golan, outside of Israel, we need Israel. And so what was heartbreaking and very hard is living the reality of Israel. And we know how Israelis, they get up and they go and they continue with their lives. But even when people say, "Yeh tov," it will be all right, because it has to, because we have no other choice. Sometimes they don't necessarily believe it. And the uncertainty right now is heartbreaking. The anger, the pain, the sadness, the realization, the helplessness and hopelessness is scary. It's actually terrifying. And there is this dichotomy of carrying on, of continuing to live life, because that's what we have to do, and that's what Israelis have to do, and they're so good at doing. But still, every day living October 7th. Friends dying in Gaza, people being held hostages, families being displaced, a war breaking out in the north, probably, the unknown of what's going to happen, not seeing the end. So that dichotomy is something that is very hard to understand, but it's real. What is the solution? Nobody really knows. The dissonance that exists in Israel and for people is absolutely hard to believe, and it's hard to experience, but that is the reality. That dissonance of defeat and victory at the same time, dissonance of hope and hopelessness, the dissonance of living life while death is all around, the dissonance of overcoming while being reminded of October 7th every single day, the dissonance of rebuilding when you feel the destruction, the dissonance of loving and hating at the same time, that dissonance of fighting for our country, but not at any expense. So what's going to happen? We don't know. We really don't know. And as I said, that is scary. It's terrifying. But Israelis, they know how to continue life. What I can tell you is that when you think, or when you undermine the impact that you have on someone, you should reconsider that thinking, because every little thing that we can do for someone, every little good thought that we can bring to someone, every smile that we could give another human being can be the difference between that person having a great day, having a great week, a great month, just feeling great about themselves. And so don't take it for granted, the impact that we can create. So what I learned from this experience is that we should never undermine the impact that we have on others. And we should listen to our hearts. If there is something that we really want to do, is because we should probably act on it. If we have something that is sitting with us, we need to pay attention to it. We need to listen to our gut, and we need to take action. Because that little action, that decision that we make can be the difference between not only changing our lives for the better, but changing other people's lives for the better.
This has been another episode of Call Me Crazy with Shiri Gabriel. Make sure to join in next week for a new episode, and if you would like to contact Miss Gabriel about speaking or training at your next conference, function, or event, visit shiri.coach.